Hey folks, we're going to burn the midnight oil tonight. We're going to peel some apples and make some apple pie filling. It's probably 10 o'clock at night. And need to get her done, so let's get a pot of coffee going and get to it. Got our Honeycrisp apples that we picked the other day. We're going to peel all these up and cut them up, and we'll get these cooking for apple pie filling. I don't eat a lot of that myself anymore, but I do make things for other people like Mom or whoever. So let's get her done. Now these are organic apples pretty much. They don't get any kind of spray or any kind of treatment on them. So you're going to have little blemishes that you got to cut off. Now once I get the apple peeled, I just come in here right alongside the core and get a big hunk off like that. And then just come around it like this. Just cutting slices off. Going right around that core. And you get nice little slices of apple. And then that goes to the chickens. Now this brings back good memories for me messing with these apples. I remember from my childhood we would go deer camping every year up in the high Sierras, a place called Cherry Lake. And it was a huge family get-together. Literally, my mom's whole side of her family was up there. My great uncle would go up there for the whole season. We had this huge camp. And every year at that time, way back in the middle of nowhere on this old homestead, you had to drive probably 45 minutes to get there in the back country. There was these old apple trees at this old homestead that had been abandoned, and we would go pick those apples and bring them back to the camp, and the women in camp would make apple desserts with those apples. They were really good, really tart, kind of an old heirloom type apple, but they were really good. I don't know what variety they were, but they weren't really sweet enough where you could eat them like an apple, but very, very tart. But those always were the best desserts, and that was really cool. Those were good trips back then, up there in the mountains. It was just a huge camp, lots of fun. We had cooked around the campfire, and it's good times. Got our apples peeled and sliced. So we're using 2 pots because we have too many apples for 1 pot. So I'll tell you what's in 1 pot. There's 12 cups of apples. There's 1 cup of just regular white sugar. And then there's a half a cup of water, 6 tablespoons of melted butter, and 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. We have that in both pots. So we're going to turn on the fire now to about medium heat. And we're going to cover these pots. And we're going to cook these apples. We're going to stir them on occasion, probably to about 6 or 8 minutes until the apples are just slightly softened. And then we're going to do our next step, which we'll tell you what that is when we get there. So our apples have begun to simmer. We've already stirred them once, and they're giving off juice. So the juice is building inside the pan. So while we're waiting for both of these to soften up, we've come over here, we put 4 tablespoons of cornstarch and 6 tablespoons of water in each one of these bowls. We're going to mix them up real good. Each one of these bowls will be dumped into those pots to thicken the liquid in the pot. This smells absolutely amazing. All right, our apples have softened a bit. So we're going to pour our slurry into the pot. Make sure it's stirred up really well. And then we're going to stir as we pour that in so we don't get any kind of lumps. Make sure it's all in there. And then we'll bring that back to a boil. We're going to turn that down to low, put the lid back on it, and then we'll do this pot here. Get that stirred in. It's going to start to thicken up. And once it comes to a simmer, we'll turn it down to low. We're going to let it simmer for a minute or so until it gets to whatever consistency we want it to be. Now if it stays too thin for you, just take the lid off the pot. Continue to stir it on low as it simmers. You don't want to go too long though, your apples will get mushy. But if you follow the recipe, you can see it's pretty thick in there already. So we'll turn this one down to low. Put the lid on it, let it bubble. See, our first pot is ready. We turned the fire completely off on this pot. You see how the syrup coats the apples now? That's what you're looking for. And then we're going to leave the lid off of this and let this cool. And then we're going to put this in bags. We'll put it in the freezer, let it partially freeze, and then we'll vacuum seal it. Okay, our other pot is done now. We're going to turn it off. Everything's coating really nicely. The apples have softened up, but they're not mushy. So we'll let this cool as well. We'll give it a good stir before we put it into bags. I'll show you that in a bit. Have to do that before we go to bed later. Now you could can this if you wanted to can it in jars. You would put it hot like it is now into your pint jars, your sterilized pint jars. And then you would water bath these if you're at sea level for 25 minutes. If you're above 1,000 feet, you want to add it 5 minutes for every 1,000 feet. And water bath them for that long, and you'd have canned apple pie filling. But it cooks everything a little bit longer when you're doing it that way. When you freeze it like I'm going to do, your apples will have a little bit better texture when you thaw them out and use them for pies or whatever you're going to use them for. Now we're only going to be freezing one pot of these because we're going to use the other pot of these tomorrow to make a dessert for Mom and some other folks. So we'll see you in a bit. Alright, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. The stuff is cooled down completely. We've got 2 jars that we're going to use in the next couple days, probably tomorrow evening. And then I got 1 quart bag that we sealed up, and that's going to go in the freezer for later use. Tastes absolutely amazing. Really good pie feeling, the best you can get, homemade. So hope you try this recipe. If you got an apple tree at home, this is good stuff. So we're going to wrap things up, get this stuff in the fridge, and go to bed. Hope you enjoyed our little video. So Till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us at the farm.